this is Frode and welcome back to Actualize Notes TV. Today we have another great book, The Philosophy of Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, CBT, by Donald Robertson. The Philosophy of Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, CBT. Subtitle, The Stoic Philosophy as Rational and Cognitive Psychotherapy. Donald Robertson is an integrative psychotherapist and trainer, and an amazingly intelligent and funny guy, as you'll see if you choose to read the book yourself. And in this book he shows the cool practical connections between ancient philosophy, more directly Stoicism, and modern psychotherapy, or cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's really cool to see these connections between what psychotherapists do now and what ancient philosophers did 2,000 and more years ago, and how they almost exactly correlate. And what the modern psychotherapists do now is pretty much the same that the philosophers did before. And philosophers were actually the physicians of the soul to people in ancient times. But yeah, let's not talk more about that and instead jump to my favorite big ideas. First one is philosopher. So Donald goes on to talk a lot about the differences between ancient and modern philosophy. And he says that the ancient philosopher was more like a warrior of the mind. He used his philosophy to help him conquer challenges and face adversity in his life. Whereas the modern philosopher, the one who seeks wisdom, is more like a librarian of the mind. So before they were more like warriors of the mind, now it's more like just cataloging ideas. We're never really using them, but before they used them as swords, the ideas they learned. To get more practical to our next big idea, they saw themselves as warrior because they used principles as swords, or like boxing gloves, to fight the challenges of life. And these principles were kind of one of the most important techniques of Stoicism. It was to memorize and repeat and rehearse. Imagine using these principles, which came from the sages like Socrates and Aristotle, committing them to memory, and then using them in their daily lives. For example, nothing in excess. Well, this is a short principle, easy to memorize and easy to use. Nothing in excess. Well, then when you eat until you're full, but you don't eat more. When you drink until maybe you're a bit doozy, but you're not drunk. When you run until you're tired, but you don't run until you die. So these principles were really the weapons of the philosopher, and they could recall these weapons by clenching their fists. They clenched their fists to make it really clear that they were using weapons to face challenges. And again, it was one of the most important techniques. So to make it really practical, what we can do, what you can do, what I can do, is to collect quotes from those people we most admire that really resonate with us, that have real clear, practical ways of living. And we can collect them from our heroes, which can be Socrates, it can be Tony Robbins, it can be Darren Hardy, or anyone. And then we can read those principles each morning and imagine how we can use them in our lives. I do this each morning, by the way. Write on these virtues and these principles that I want to live by. And I try to live by them more and more each day. And these principles, to make these principles even more powerful, the Stoics used what they had, role models, and they called the ideal sage. The ideal sage was often Socrates or Aristotle or Epicurus, or one of those ancient guys who were living virtuously through their entire lives and were really impressive role models. And the way they would use these was to collect their principles. They would memorize those principles, repeat them each day, and rehearse how they would use them in their daily lives. And then, when they got into such situations where they face challenges, somebody insults them, or they fall and hurt themselves, they have these principles ready to mind, so they can immediately use them as swords, these principles. And these principles help them outcrowd negative thoughts. For example, when you fall, oh my god, this hurts so bad, and why do I always have to fall? You can instead use principles like, obstacles make me stronger, and repeat that to yourself. Just literally do. Obstacles make me stronger, obstacles make me stronger. And when somebody insults you, instead of saying, oh my god, that hurt, that person knows all of my faults. Instead we can say, that person feels bad about himself, and therefore he chooses to insult me. So, who is your role model? The number one, and I'd advise you to collect a few of their quotes or principles which have practical applications in your life, and then remind yourself of them each morning and see if you can actually recall them when you're in such situations where you actually need them. Fourth big idea is happiness. When we talk about happiness, we can distinguish between two different kinds. And also I'm going to talk about the fifth big idea in correlation to this, because they're really related. So, first, choice. Donald talks about the Pythagorean fork. The Pythagorean fork, which had two pathways. The pathway of error, side face, or the pathway of excellence, or virtue, or arte, living at our highest potential moment to moment, smiley face. And you can either step forward into growth, do something you're proud of, and which gives you true happiness, or step backward into safety, do something you're not proud of and you know you're better than. And the distinction between two kinds of happiness. You have hedonism, where you kind of go for immediate gratification. You want things that are pleasurable in the moment, but that doesn't really last. Like eating and drinking and cocaine and excessive social media browsing, looking at all of the perfect lives of our friends and famous celebrities. Then we have eudaimonia. The word eudaimonia is pretty fascinating. The EU means good. Daimon means soul or spirit. The Stoics had something called the daimon, which was the spirit, their soul, the truest sense of who we really are. And the number one way to be happy was to always try to make this relationship with their inner daimon, the God within, as good as possible. That relationship. So hedonism, immediate gratification. Eudaimonia is more long-term happiness. Do the disciplines, perform the habits that you know you need to get done to live a happy and healthy life. And we all know what these things are. It's just, will we choose to do them or not? Will we choose the pathway of error, or will we choose the pathway of excellence? And of course we'll sometimes choose the path of error on our not so optimal days, but then we gotta bring a level of compassion and just recognize what we did wrong, and instead learn what we can do better the next time, so we can get back on the pathway of excellence. The poet Hesiod, who lived hundreds of years before Christ, also called this the path of life or the path of death. Which will you choose? Happiness, long-term happiness, eudaimonia, or short-term happiness of hedonism? It's up to you. That's the choice, or error, excellence and happiness, hedonism and eudaimonia. Who is your role model, and what are their principles that you can embody in your own life to become more and more like them? What are principles that you in general like? Quotes from different kinds of people that can help you in certain situations. And of course the philosopher is a warrior of the mind. He uses principles and their philosophy as swords to face challenges in life. They're not librarians of the mind, just cataloging these principles, but not actually memorizing and learning this stuff and using it, applying it. Now, that's a quick look at the philosophy of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, by Donald Robertson. Kind of enjoyed it, and I recommend that you read it yourself, especially if you're into Stoicism, ancient wisdom, and how it applies to modern psychotherapy. For now, think about the one idea that jumped out at you, that inspired you to take some action. Figure out what's the first simple step you can take, and then take that step. As always, I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Looking forward to sharing more wisdom with you soon. Let's keep optimizing and actualizing. See you.